guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from the new Hero Arts Studio December 2024 release. I'm going to be using the Cling stamp of the month as well as the Happy Thanks Stampin' Cut Extra Large. Basically, what we're going to do, this is their Cling stamps are 6x6. So we're going to have a 6x6 piece of cardstock that we are going to do a embossed resist watercolor technique on. You could do whatever color medium you would like or use pattern paper or whatever. Basically, I'm just going to show you how you can get up to 4 cards with 0 waste just by using this one 6x6 background that we're going to create. So this is the, what do they call it? The Luxe White Watercolor Paper by Hero Arts. I've treated it with my anti-static tool, and now I am inking up my stamp with the Unicorn White pigment ink because I am going to do, like I said, an emboss resist. There's endless amounts of techniques that you could do to your 6x6 piece of cardstock in order to make these cards, but this is what I'm doing today because I like rainbows. This might be one of my favorite studio releases that they've done. It's just so whimsical. There's lots of butterflies and rainbows and just lots of really like happy, fun things. So if you haven't, I would encourage you to check it out. So I'm inking this up. I'm going to stamp this down. I'm going to give it good pressure to make sure that I'm not going to miss any parts. Here, spoiler alert, I do actually miss that bottom right-hand corner. It happens. But I do stamp it twice. That's why I use my Misty so that I know that I can go in there and get it a second time. And then I'm using the white detail embossing powder from Hero Arts, sprinkling that on, tapping off the excess, and then I'm going to heat this until it is smooth. Anyway, there's a blog hop. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There is a blog hop going on right now, and there's giveaways, which we always appreciate. So they are giving away $50 gift card drawn from the comments left along the hop, and then they'll pull that winner on December 8th. If you're watching on YouTube, I will link it below. In addition to that, Hero Arts Black Friday sales are still going on, and they're pretty good. Almost everything that I'm using here today is on sale, minus the background, which, like I said, you can use any 6x6 background, and they have plenty of those on sale, I assure you. And the inks are on sale. The reactive ink refills you see me using here are actually part of the card kit. That's how I chose the colors. But it is Fruit Punch, Lemon Drop, Green Apple, Blue Hawaii, and Purple Galaxy. So that's going to give us a really great rainbow color palette to work with. Something to note, if you're not very familiar with Hero Arts watercolor paper, it acts similar to a hot press. I assume it's a hot press. It doesn't say that, but hot press is known. It's 100% cotton. Hot press is known for being able to like render more detail, so you have significantly more control versus cold press, where maybe there's a little bit more sizing or texture, and so the watercolors don't kind of like sink in right away. So I prefer cold press, but you can do this with hot press. Obviously here I am doing it. So I find it easiest to just spray it down with a mister, and then I go in and move the water around with my paintbrush. And then once I have everything wet, I'm just going to pick up, these are, you know, the pure, re-inkers. So again, I'm using the reactive inks because that's what came in the card kit, but you can use any re-inker that you have for a water-based ink. So Hero Arts has the reactive inks. You could also use distress inks or distress oxides. You can, if you don't have the re-inkers, you can also smush it down on a non-porous surface. Like me, I have a glass mat, and pick it up with a paintbrush and drop it in. That will not be as concentrated color. So if you're looking for bold color like you see here, I would highly recommend using a reinker. If you want your colors to be less bright, use more water, water them down more. If you want them to be bolder, use less water. But you can see these colors aren't really moving a ton away from where I've put them, even though we have quite a bit of water on the paper. For this extra bit over here that doesn't have any of the heat embossing, I am a cheap chicken. I'm not letting any of this cardstock go to waste. So I will just fill that up with some rainbow colors. I could have used that to die cut one of my sentiments out of, or they have a like butterfly fancy dye or some crayon fancy dyes that are coming out in this studio as well. I could use that with those. Here you can see when I tried to move it around, it got a little muddy, and I'm just going in with a paper towel and blotting up any areas that got muddy that I didn't love. And then because there still is moisture on the paper, I can just drop back in some new color and fix it. Watercolor is so forgiving, so don't feel like you're going to ruin it. Even now, it kind of looks like a hot mess, but as it dries, that's the thing with watercolor. Like as it dries, it looks totally different. So here I'm kind of going in and getting any of the extra water that is sitting around on the glass mat, because I want to start blow drying this. Now you can let it dry naturally, of course you can, but I am impatient, and so I'm going to use my heat tool. You do whichever works for you. So anyway, yeah, their Black Friday sales are still going on, and they're, like I said, almost everything I'm using here is on sale, including the sentiment set that Stampin' Cut extra large. I use this one a lot because there are times when a larger sentiment really will pull a whole card together, and I love that. So once I have this dry to the point where it's not completely dry, but it's not dripping, then I can go ahead and pick it up. Because I'm working on a glass mat, sometimes I can get that condensation underneath it, and I like to be able to pick up my cardstock. Also, if it's warping, then I can hit it from the other side. So just some things to keep in mind. Here, I am going in with my alcohol markers. I'm using Copics, but you can use whatever you would like. I'm going in and I am adding stronger color just to the rainbow areas, just to help them kind of pop out a little bit. And I'm only doing really simple 2-color blends, and I'm sticking to the same colors that I used with the watercolor. So I'm doing a red, a yellow, a green, a blue, and a violet. And then you can see I've showed you two, like I'll obviously color the rest of them, but I showed you two because I wanted you to see, dependent upon what color is behind it, because alcohol markers are transparent, will change the way that the color looks. So if you're putting a blue marker over a blue background, that blue is going to be super intense. But if you're putting a green marker over some of the fruit punch, that red area, it's not going to be super intense. It's going to be much more muted because they're complementary colors. Just some things to keep in mind. If you're worried about making mud, kind of like I did a little bit earlier, don't use rainbow colors. Use colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So you could do a pink, a red, a yellow, and an orange, and they'll all look nice together. Or you could do a teal, a blue, a violet, and a pink, and they'll pretty much all look nice together. So then once you are coloring these, you do run the risk of coloring your embossing, because alcohol markers color pretty much anything. If you get some unwanted ink on top of your white embossing, you just go in with your colorless blender, swoop it, scribble it off on a scrap piece, and then go back in and do it again. You do want to scribble it off pretty frequently, because otherwise you run the risk of redepositing the color, which is not cool. So for the clouds, which don't they kind of look like a typography? They're fun. They got a lot of swirls and stuff. I'm using this white acrylic spray from Hero Arts, and dependent upon if you use it straight out of the bottle or if you mix in a little water, a lot of water, you mess around with the opacity of the ink, which is really kind of fun. I'm not coloring in everything. I'm just kind of going in and picking select swirls and adding a little white highlight to that. And this, again, is just going to add some more interest to our card without covering up all of that really beautiful watercolor. For the most part, I didn't use it super concentrated. I did mix in a little bit of water. The only time I used it a little bit more concentrated is after I had gone through and done all of the adding I wanted. I did go back and do some like splatters. That's what you see me doing here. And those are a little bit of a higher concentration. You do want to make sure your background is completely dry before we move on to cutting it. So since the Hero Arts papers come in a 8.5 by 5.5. I have to trim this down to a 6x6. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'll just set that other watercolor piece aside. The first cut that I am going to make is going to be in the top left-hand corner for me, and I'm going to do a 3x3 square. And these are just like go-to layouts that I use pretty frequently, whether I'm trying to use a 6x6 or not. Here is me mathing. It's hard. I'm actually going to bring this cut down to 4 inches. And then when I flip it, I'll cut off and turn it into that 3x3 square. But the reason I went down to 4 is to make sure that I have a smooth cut for my next panel, which is, so there's our 3x3 square. And then this one, I'm going to cut into a 3x4 inch panel. So these are going to be the two biggest panels that we have. So, they're going to be good sized for, creating a background. Like I said, these are going to be the ones that are, the typical of what I would normally be doing. So I'm going to cut this into a 3x4. And then I will have that panel. I was a little hesitant. I guess I wasn't pushing as hard as I needed to. So it cut through the paper, but not all the way through. I just trimmed it with my scissors. So now I'm going to do one last cut, which is going to give me an 1.5 by 5.5 long piece. And here you can see this is how they'll kind of lay out. The reason that we're going to get 4 instead of 3, if you wanted to do this piece horizontally, then you would get 3 cards, and you would just have one that was in a landscape. I am still going to do this one as a portrait, which is then going to leave me with a square-ish piece that is an 1.5 inches by 1.25 inches. And then we have the other piece, the longer piece that was left over from our second cut, which is, what is it? It's 3 inches by 1 inch. I did not want to have to measure to get my black border. I like a pop of black with my bright colors. Not everybody does, but I do. Plus, that matte helps to give it more weight on the card. So I like to glue mine into a corner, and then I only have to make 2 cuts in order to get the border that I want. And again, I guess I was a little hesitant. This trimmer is still new to me, so apparently I just need to be giving it better pressure. And then for the square, the 3x3 square, I'm going to do it the same way. I'm just going to adhere it into the corner, and then I am going to trim just those 2 sides so they all have 1/8 of an inch. The last trim that I'm going to do on the black paper is the border for the 4 1/4 piece that I'm going to put that along the top. And then for the sentiments, again, these are neutrals. I really like pop of black and white with my bright colors. So I'm going to cut out 2 black happies and 2 black thanks and 2 white happies and 2 white thanks. For the other elements, they do not have a die cut. The only die cuts included in the set are the happy and the thanks, but most of them are sized to be the same size. So if I just nestle these up in the corner, it's kind of like the same trick that I just did with the mats. I nestle them up in a corner, and then I only have to make just those 2 cuts in order to get my little label. So again, I stamped these twice in that unicorn pigment ink, and then I'm using that same detail ink, heat setting that, and then we're going to move on to building the cards. This is a really short video for me. I don't think we'll even have time to like fit in any story time, so I apologize for that. But this comes together super quickly. So here I have my 3x3, which is slightly larger now because we've added a mat, but nonetheless, I'm going to put that up in the top section, and then you can do the sentiment below it, but I like it. I think it creates a more interesting edge when you overlap your sentiment. So I am going to pop up all of this on foam. Again, these are more clean and simple cards. So it's something that I enjoy doing to add interest, but you certainly don't have to. The one that says, "Thanks for being a great friend," is flat. It's not popped up at all. So once I have that where I want it, then I actually decided that I liked the white sentiment, but I really liked kind of a drop shadow with it to help it show up at the bottom. So I'm going to adhere my white thanks on top of my black thanks, but I'm going to leave the edge of the black thanks showing down into the bottom left. So it's, acts like a drop shadow. The S is hanging off, so I am going to support that with just a little piece of foam tape. But then I'm going to adhere it to the bottom. There's enough interest going on in our panel. These feel very Lisa Frank to me, which I'm a child of the 90s, so I totally love that. Did you just see how I dropped my sentiment and got glue on my card? Yeah, that was awesome. It was really cool. Actually, if that happens to you, don't touch it. Just let it dry, because if you try to touch the glue when it is wet, you're more likely to just add like dirt and stuff to it. Once it's dry, you can go in with an adhesive eraser and it'll be like you never dropped it. That's what I did here. So then for the So Much, I popped that up on foam as well. And I'm going to put that kind of down into the bottom right. And then later on, I'll add gemstones to help balance the design. So this one, I did the happy birthday one the same way as the thanks, everything the same there. And then for this one, I could have done the drop shadow, but I actually liked the black sentiment better. So in order to just give it a little bit of lift, I adhered the white one behind it. I could have stacked up a couple of them, and that would have given it some real heft and some weight and added interest on its own. But I was happy with just the 2. And then the For Being a Great Friend is just adhered flat underneath it. I think the little black border that you see on top of the rainbow really gives it a nice finished edge and makes it look like, it was obviously for us, it was intentional because I cut it to the size on purpose, but it looks very intentional with that kind of background. This one is the one that has all of our leftover pieces. And so it is more of a collage kind of style, where you have like those little pops of color, but you don't necessarily know that they're rainbows or anything like that. For this type of collage, I do like a larger sentiment, so the happy everything, kind of works for this. And because we can't really tell what the background is other than it's kind of watercolor rainbow with glitters and things like that, to me, happy everything fits because you can send it for literally anything, any sort of congratulations or celebration or birthday, whichever you like. So I did pop these up. Again, this card doesn't have a whole lot going on. I could have trimmed it down and given it a black matte. That would have been something else to add to it. So let's recap with our gems. This is the 3x3. This is the 3x4. This is the 4 1/4 by 1 1/2, and then this is everything that's left over. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you'll head over and check out the blog for the giveaway and their Black Friday sales. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.